Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to attend today's session, #New Normal in Travel Payments Past, Present, and Future. Today's session will be hosted by CSI's VP of Regional Sales, Cindy Lewis, and Michael Henthorn, Corporate Travel Manager at Weaver. My name is Melisha Pinckney, and I'll be acting as the moderator. Some quick housekeeping items before we get started. We will be recording today's session, and the recording will be distributed to all attendees this afternoon. We'll also provide our direct contact information at the end of the session if you would like to schedule a personalized follow-up at a later time. Everyone will be on mute today, but we'll have the ability to ask questions. If you do have any questions at any point throughout the webinar, you can type it into the questions section located at the bottom of the GoToWebinar panel. We'll address those questions during the Q&A portion. With that being said, I'll turn it over to Cindy.
Good morning, and thank you all for joining. Like Melisha said, I'm VP of Regional Sales for CSI. Happy to be here with you today. I've actually been with CSI for 3.5 years, but bring a unique travel industry experience or expertise to this position. I've been in the travel industry for over 30 years. So appreciate your time today, and I'd like to introduce or have Michael introduce himself, and then we'll get going.
Good morning. I'm Michael Henthorn. I'm the corporate travel manager at Weaver, and I've been there about 7 years. And Weaver, just so if you don't know, is a tax assurance and advisory firm of about 1,000 employees, and they're spread over 12 offices. So I've also been in the travel industry for a little bit over 30 years too.
So we bring lots of expertise to this conversation. So thanks, Michael. Let's just go ahead and get started. So if you would, talk to us a little bit about what you do. What's the makeup of your travel program today? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your type of traveler, the technologies that you use, et cetera. Give us some background.
Okay. So out of those 1,000 employees, probably 600 are travelers. Of the travelers, they're made up 75% is client driven and about 25% is training driven. So I manage that travel program. Our travel management company is Colwick Travel, and we've been with them for 2 years now. And our travelers book using Concur.
Great. Can you tell me a little bit about your process for reconciliation?
Yes, we capture quite a bit of information, especially around client billable travel. So our reconciliation, we capture this at the time of booking. It's mandatory for each reservation, and we capture everything through the CSI tool, and that's where we get our reconciliation that comes back every month. That used to be a manual process. It used to take hours to do, and now it's automated, and we get a clean file with all reconciliation, which makes life a lot easier.
Great. That's a good segue to asking if you could share a little bit about why you're using virtual cards with your travel program.
Yeah, there's several reasons. I guess the initial reason was probably the issues we were having with hotel properties, not taking the credit card authorizations we were sending out. So just a little bit of background. The program that I inherited, we were sending credit card authorizations and a copy of a credit card out to the hotels and hoping, that worked. So we definitely needed a better process than that, which we found with CSI. And the second part of that would be the reconciliation was crucial. We were having to get this, like I say, client bill information back. It needed to come back for billing purposes as quickly as we could get it.
Got it. So what's the profile of your corporate traveler? You mentioned that you were having issues putting credit cards on file. What age group, or tell me a little bit about your actual travelers, the people that are on the road.
Okay. The majority of our travelers are our younger employees, probably under 30 years old. They're going out for audit purposes is probably the majority of it. Going to visit the clients or going out to do, could be inventory, could be client driven, could be, just an audit on site. And so they enjoy using this too. They do a very good job. Once we got the initial program set up, got them familiar with the notifications they would get on the virtual payments. So they weren't thinking that these were spam emails that were coming through, and they knew that they would have it in case they had issues checking in at the hotel. So they're good about using the app, and understanding how all this works. So they know if they show up, they know if there's any issues that, they've got the documentation they need or something to back it up.
Great. Just so to reiterate, you use the email notifications and the mobile app, and your travelers are super cool with that.
Correct. Yeah, they love it. Makes it a lot easier for them. They're pretty savvy with it, so they know if they see anything up front initially, they know to call right away, so we can work on it. Why? I always tell them it's easier to fix it when they're in house than after the fact. So
Great.
They're pretty good about it.
That's cool. So talk to me a little bit about the process that you use to evaluate virtual card providers, and what factors were important to you when you chose CSI?
Reconciliation was probably the biggest one. That, like I said, was a manual process. Took a lot of manpower to do that every month. So reconciliation was crucial. We weren't getting nearly the reconciliation with our previous product that we were using. So that was first and foremost. And then second was just the ability of the acceptance of the new card. So that was huge. It was pretty smooth transition. So I don't feel like we had to do a lot of work around that. One thing Colwick Travel was able to do for us was to automate the pieces with Sabre and the virtual card issuance. So this was like happening instantaneously. It used to be a manual process to go in and populate that information so we have it come back in the reconciliation. They were able to automate that through software. So at the time of reservation is made, that virtual payment is sent out within 30 seconds. So that might have been a little detour around the question you asked, but that kind of tells you the process.
I appreciate your elaboration. So sounds to me like the implementation was fairly straightforward. Would you say that once implemented, the program was easy to deploy? Did you have any challenges with that?
No, it was all really smooth.
Okay, cool. So could you tell us a little bit about how you sold to your senior leadership or your C-suite to, what benefits, or how did you articulate the benefits to them so that you could get that decision made, or did you make that decision on your own?
The biggest thing, again, the timing was everything. So where we had tried to implement some things in the past or get buy-in, just we weren't getting it because they weren't seeing the need for it at the time. What helped with this was that almost simultaneously, when we wanted to implement this, that's when they wanted to go to client billing more frequently than once a month. So this gave us an opportunity with the reconciliation to facilitate that. So they were on board with that 100%.
Cool. So you've talked a little bit about this, but maybe any key things that have made your program a success for yourself and your travelers?
I think that, well, the biggest thing is the virtual payments is huge. The automation of that whole process has made a big difference. Bringing on a new travel management company within the last 2 years that's better suited to our needs with the size of our company. So those are all, just huge improvements. You can tell by the reduction in manpower, the reduction in hours of, facilitating these previous processes that are now automated, and having a support structure as well too.
Got it. So let's look forward. I mean, I think everybody's anxious to know, what's in store for you as it relates to hashtag new normal, and what has changed as it relates to what your travel program looks like before, how it looks now, and what you look to see it, how you see it change maybe in the summer and the fall.
Okay. Yeah, I think that some aspects of it have not changed at all. We still have some clients that through this whole time have been required to have someone on site by state laws. So that piece of it, there's a small group that hasn't changed their travel at all. There's a group that has changed a little bit, and it's pretty much driven by, they might still be out doing client business. They might be doing it at different locations rather than the client's office, because the client's office could be shut. So they're meeting offsite. As far as the travelers are choosing a lot now to drive as opposed to flying because of the reduction in flight schedules. So they're, where they could fly, where they had 10 or 15 choices 4 months ago, now they might have 2 or 3. So it doesn't make sense for them to put the time in at the airport, lose 4 or 5 hours out of the day to make this flight that's now scheduled so much later in the day. So seeing a lot more driving, getting some feedback on the hotels, a little eerie feeling at the hotels when they're checking in. Not really. Sometimes they say they only see one person checking them in at the front desk. Into the rooms that are sealed off, and they're using their keyless entry on their apps to get in the rooms, and say they might, go to the next morning and not see another person. So they're feeling like they're in these hotels by themselves. So I hope that what our new normal is going to be looks like our old normal, and hopefully we get back to this by the fall. We have eliminated any training, in-person training, I should say, for the rest of the year, that was a big piece of what we did. That was 25% of everything. So now it's all gone to virtual training for now, but I hope in the fall maybe we make a different decision and we decide that we can move forward with getting people back on site in the training rooms. And we're still hiring. We've got new hires coming on every week. We've brought some of our furloughed people that were furloughed in March, we brought them back on board already, which was pretty quick. So that's kind of where it's at. It's kind of all over the board, really.
Gotcha. Well, I remember you telling me about a challenge you had kind of before we were really released much in Texas here with the group that you had booked in Dallas.
Yeah, we did have I finalized a contract for a pretty large group that was going to take place in September, and finalized the contract maybe 3 days before everything happened and we had to leave our offices. So then we got the notification we weren't going to be doing this training. It's been a little bit of a challenge to try to work with that contract and see what options we have of, maybe future use of it, or, trying to recoup what we can out of that and work with the staff that's still there to work with too. That's been another challenge. The hotel's not fully staffed. So
I'm sure
that gives you a challenge when you're working with somebody. The particular person I'm working with is working 8 hours a week. So it's got a small window to try to get a hold of that person. So just was bad timing, but who knew? Everything, when we signed off on this, everything looked good.
Right. So have you had any changes in your written corporate travel policy or anything official that's gone out to the Weaver travelers, or has it been left up to the travelers to decide? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, we really haven't changed the policy or rewritten the policy, which I think is good.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing we've put in place, and it's just kind of been made everyone aware, and it's been emailed out. We've talked about it on firm-wide calls that we've had, but any travel that's taking place now has to get the approval of a partner in charge before they can do that.
Got it.
I don't know if that will be a permanent. I don't see that being a permanent change. I think that will be temporary until we get back to more travel, opening up across the board.
Mm-hmm. Have you had any travelers that have just, go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry. No, besides that, that's pretty much the only change we've had to the policy.
Got it. Have you had any travelers that have refused to travel at all, or do you feel like your travelers are willing? I know some people, I've heard some people are anxious to get out of their homes and perhaps get out.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
No, I haven't seen anybody that's been apprehensive to travel. I mean, anybody that can travel is willing to do it. We've had a lot of people that have had to step up and travel that wouldn't normally travel. So, for example, the new hires that we're bringing in every week, we've had some people that have had to do the on-site training with them in locations where they wouldn't normally do that training. It would be facilitated by the HR department. So I haven't seen that. The only thing I've seen where people were reluctant is being reluctant to go back into the office, which is probably a challenge as we go forward. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
So what percentage of your time are you back in the office? I can see that you're in your home office today. Are you going back into the office?
I'm trying to. I'm doing about a day a week, but it's a little bit of a challenge because I find that I'll go in tomorrow, but I find when I go in that these poor people that have been there by themselves for all this time, they just want to talk all day long. So counterproductive to go into the office because you just have a steady stream of people coming in all the time, just because you haven't seen them in months. So
got it.
It'll be, I don't know, it will be something I evaluate going forward, how much I need to go in the office and how much I can, or I mean, I have the ability to work from home and always have had, but I don't want to keep an office that can be utilized for somebody else too, if I don't need to. So we've challenges around that, just restacking office space. Our new Dallas office, you've seen that, you saw that open concept that we have there. So it provides probably a better workspace than the older offices based on the way it's set up. So it's easy for people there's enough room for people to distance themselves there. And as of today, all of our offices are open with the exception of New York, and our 2 offices in LA are still closed. And we're just trying to determine that as we go when a good time is to open those back up.
Okay. So specific to your suppliers, your negotiated hotels or your partners, your supplier partners, what kind of, have you had any formal communication with them on a regular basis? Have you, just gotten most of your news from the media or GBTA? What are you hearing as it relates to official communication from your preferred suppliers, if anything?
It's very little. And I think I feel like I'm in a position where most of these people were furloughed. And I know that there are restrictions around communicating with furloughed employees. So I try not to talk to them about business. A lot of them I'll talk to on a personal level or just check in to see how they're doing. But I've seen enough companies that are restricting business talk from anybody that's furloughed, and that unfortunately makes up a huge percentage of my contacts. So
got it.
That's where I'm getting a lot back from GBTA too, keeping up with their daily feeds that we get, and that's helpful.
Can you compare your program or your job with other travel managers? That I know that you stay in touch with a lot of the Dallas-Fort Worth travel management community. how would you say that the communication has been with those peers or those colleagues in the industry, and how have you seen your program change versus what's out there?
I think that I'm in a better position probably than a lot. This is where we benefit from having a smaller group of employees, having only domestic offices, no international. That helps a lot, and still gives us the ability to communicate as a group of 1,000 people a lot better, and kind of keep that group together, keep them informed of any changes that are going on. So I feel like that I benefit from that right now because I'm not worrying about people in international locations.
Right.
We did have some people here that we were trying to get back to Asia when they were here, and that was enough of a challenge, just a handful. So I can't imagine doing that on a large scale. So that's where I'm kind of grateful. We have a smaller program, and so that helps a lot.
That makes sense. Any predictions for the future of your corporate travel program as it relates to the pandemic, or any predictions for the industry? Just curious. If you have a crystal ball, what would you predict?
I've been looking for it. I haven't found it yet. I'm still looking. I hope that we go back to what we were doing before. For our company, I feel like we will probably benefit more than most companies because of this. We definitely have picked up a lot of new clients just around the PPP program. So
got it.
That's going to bring in a bunch of new business. Of course, the tax business never stops. So I'd look to get back probably as soon as anybody does, to get back to normal. I don't think we're going to be able to not service our clients if we don't get back there.
Got it.
That's my crystal ball.
Okay.
Or my wish list.
Any final thoughts or anything you'd like to share before we turn it back over to Melisha for our Q&A?
I don't think so. I appreciate all the support from everybody through all of this. So we're not doing nearly what we used to do, but the little bit we are doing is still being supported. So I do appreciate that. I'm grateful for that.
Great. Well, I appreciate you joining our webinar today. Your thoughts and insights are super helpful and interesting. I'm sure that the people that are on the call have enjoyed hearing from you as well. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Melisha, and we can do our Q&A.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Michael. We do have a couple of questions here that I can go over. So the first question is, what is the typical cost of a virtual card program?
Typical
cost.
You
want to take that, Michael?
Yeah, typical cost for me is nothing. So Cindy, you might elaborate on a little bit more.
Well, we're happy that that our solution, we can offer it at no additional cost to our corporate partners through our TMC relationships.
Michael, this looks like a question for you. How have your travelers responded to the virtual cards? Is the process easier for them or the same?
The process is a lot easier. They've been very receptive of it. I think the majority like using the app, getting notified after they make the reservation. They get notified that the virtual payment's been issued and at the hotel. So for any of the travelers that had problems in the past getting their personal cards charged, they're loving this. So they're very familiar with it. And I think I alluded to that earlier, where they're pretty sharp. They know now what they need to be looking for when they check into the hotel.
Good.
And I think you answered this, but just to be sure, are your travelers domestic or international?
They are domestic for the most part, very little international.
Okay. Have you seen any acceptance differences between the international travel and the domestic travel?
As far as, I'm sorry.
Just acceptance, the virtual cards being accepted
Oh,
by the
acceptance of
international.
yeah, no, I haven't seen, in the few cases we've done it, it seems like the acceptance has been there. We haven't had any issues with it. So have not seen it, but have not had a whole lot of international activity either.
Okay. Well, I think that concludes our questions. But for all of our attendees who have joined, if you do have any more questions, please feel free to reach out. And thank you so much for joining. And everyone have a wonderful week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.